take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokets, and welcome to the show. It is Wednesday, June 25th, 2014, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. It's also got to be one show away from show number 420. That's right, tomorrow, our 420th episode, just a little bit into our third year as an independent show. So we've gone 2 years on the air, and now show number 420 coming up tomorrow. So looking forward to that. But on today's show, boy, we are just jam-packed with news and interviews you can use for the cannabis community. We have got a vaporizer review we're going today. We already took a look at it hour 2, but we've got a representative, Joshua Young from the Herbalizer. He's going to be joining us at 5:30. Left-Wing Larry and I are going to go through the paces on this Herbalizer and talk all about it and get more information straight from the company itself. So stay tuned for that. And then at 45 after, our Cannabusiness Chronicles, we're going to be visiting with David Rheins from the Marijuana Business Association in Washington State. They're having another vendor fair this weekend, Saturday, up in Seattle, Washington. He wants to tell you all about it and encourage all people interested in cannabis business to attend that vendor fair. I was at one of the first ones, and it was standing room only, a lot of fun, and a lot of great relationships were made. Also on the show today, we have got our 420 radio news where Priscilla Simon is joining us from Colorado. Hi, Priscilla.
Hey, Russ. What's up? Happy hump day.
Happy hump day to you too. Sounding pretty good out there in Colorado. And in the news today, we've got almost all the stories are federal stories today. Did you check that out? I mean, Supreme Court, DOJ, FDA, it's like alphabet soup out there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to definitely reviewing this and hearing your mini rant on it.
Oh. Thank you so much. Yes, we got a Supreme Court decision we're going to talk about, the FDA reviewing the Schedule 1 status of cannabis. We got the Department of Justice and the U.S. Sentencing Commission weighing in on freeing pot prisoners. We've got the Washington, D.C. decrim that we have to talk about. We've got the Senate trying to defund the DEA. And in primary election news, we'll catch up with the primaries for the governor's race in Maryland and Colorado that featured pro-legalization candidates. And then we're going to take our break for our Behind the Headlines segment. In Behind the Headlines today, I'm going to read you a tragic tale that comes out of the Atlanta, Georgia area where a 2-year-old suffered intense burns and a hole in his chest when a SWAT team raided their home over drugs. We'll tell you all about that in Behind the Headlines. Also today, in hour 2, we've got all sorts of stuff to talk about. We've got some reefer madness that desperately needs debunking. Nora Volkoff, the head of the National Institutes of Drug Abuse, was speaking to the Washington Post's Ruth Marcus about the myths of marijuana. We are going to debunk almost everything that came out of her mouth. And we've got a look at police that are thinking twice about chopping down pot plants when they make drug busts because they keep getting sued for the damages of the dead plants. So we'll talk about that, and we'll take your calls at 971-533-7111. We've just got today and tomorrow before we head out to the High Times Cannabis Cup in Santa Rosa. All next week we will be off, but we will bring you video highlights from the Cannabis Cup all next week, so stay tuned for that. Also, no show this Friday because we will be driving down to Santa Rosa. All right, stay tuned. Priscilla Simon is next with the news. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, the home of marijuana experts. The Marijuana Business Association, or MJBA, are proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show. It is the mission of the MJBA to establish integrity and legitimacy, create common market standards, provide market intelligence, and develop best ethical business practices for participants in the emerging legal marijuana industry, including commercial hemp, medical marijuana, and recreational marijuana for adults. Learn more about the Marijuana Business Association and visit mjba.net to join today. That's mjba.net. The Hot Box Podcast with Matt Lee and Ian Baker from Kalispell, Montana, replaying Thursdays at 11 Pacific on 420radio.org. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com. It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available daily on our website at 420radio.org. Now, here's Priscilla Simon.
Hi folks, this is your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, June 25th, 2014. The U.S. Supreme Court tops our list of federal headlines today with a unanimous ruling affirming our rights to cell phone privacy. The justices decided 9-0 today that police must have a warrant to search the contents of your cell phone or electronic device, even if you are arrested on suspicion of a crime. The Obama administration had argued there was no difference between a smartphone and a briefcase that police are allowed to search upon arrest. Chief Justice John Roberts rejected that argument, writing, quote, "That is like saying a ride on a horseback is materially indistinguishable from a flight to the moon. Both are ways of getting from point A to point B, but little else justifies lumping them together," end quote. Police may still search a phone in a, quote, ticking time bomb scenario, but otherwise they must obtain a warrant because, as Roberts writes, quote, "A cell phone search would typically expose to the government far more than the most exhaustive search of a house," end quote.
Wow, this is fantastic news, a unanimous decision, and I kind of thought the Supreme Court would come down on our side on this one, but I didn't expect it to be a 9-0 decision. But yeah, the Obama administration was trying to argue that, hey, cops, when they arrest you, they can search your car, they can search your briefcase, you know, why shouldn't they be able to search your cell phone if you have it on you? And the court today said, no, a cell phone is not a briefcase. It exposes you to so much more private information, personal information than could possibly be found searching someone's briefcase or someone's car. It's nice to see they finally came down on the side of our rights for once.
Yeah. The Food and Drug Administration has ordered a review of marijuana's Schedule 1 status, thanks to 2 public citizen petitions to the Drug Enforcement Administration. The DEA asked FDA to review the scientific evidence of marijuana's safety and effectiveness as medicine, a key to the possible rescheduling of marijuana. Currently, marijuana is Schedule 1, having, quote, "no accepted medical use in the United States," end quote, despite now 23 states having some form of medical marijuana. Placing marijuana in Schedule 2 with cocaine and meth, Schedule 3 with steroids, Schedule 4 with Ambien, or Schedule 5 with codeine wouldn't automatically make marijuana federally legal, but it may ease restrictions on research, encourage banks to work with cannabis businesses, and allow those businesses to use traditional business tax deductions. FDA has conducted this review previously in 2001 and 2006, and both times decided there wasn't enough evidence to take marijuana out of Schedule 1.
All right. Well, good to see we're having an FDA review. We're still having some bandwidth problems at Priscilla's end. We're going to kill the camera and see if that helps for the next story. But in the meantime, yeah, this FDA review, it's, you know, it seems to me like they're just going through the motions. I don't know that they'll come down with any recommendation to reschedule marijuana, because they'll just go back to saying, once again, you know, well, there's not enough evidence to prove it. And of course, there's not enough evidence to prove it because the National Institutes of Drug Abuse won't let us study it. And they won't let us study it because it's in Schedule 1, and it's in Schedule 1 because there's not enough evidence to prove that it's medicinal. So we may be just getting the runaround on this, but I think at this point, 2014, now with 23 states with marijuana legalization and even southern states that are recognizing at least CBD as medical, I think we might get a different response this time. Now, the rescheduling isn't necessarily going to make it legal. I mean, cocaine and meth are Schedule 2, but you can still get busted if you have either of those. But like the story says, it may help us to get more research on marijuana. It may help the banks to decide that they want to work with marijuana businesses, and it may allow the current marijuana businesses to take some of the traditional tax deductions.
The one Republican Congress member from Maryland has moved to block Washington, D.C. from implementing its marijuana decriminalization law. Representative Andy Harris proposed an amendment to the House Appropriations bill that would prohibit the district from spending any tax revenue to implement its law, which mandates a $25 fine for possession of an ounce. Paradoxically, the amendment may actually benefit Canada's consumers, as the law also mandates that citizens are, quote, protected from detainment, frisking, searching, and arrest based solely on possession of an ounce or less, or based on the smell of marijuana, end quote. Police issuing tickets and collecting fines cost tax revenues, so they'd be prevented from doing that. But police not doing something like searching and arresting people costs no tax revenue. The amendment faces an uphill battle to pass the House and Senate and get the president's signature. But imagine it did, and police in Washington, D.C. could do nothing about you smelling like weed with an ounce in your pocket, so long as you're not on federal property.
Yeah, that's interesting. Priscilla, we're just having too much problems with the audio today. We're going to try and fix that for tomorrow's show, maybe get some wiring going or a new headset or something. But I'm going to continue and just read the news stories myself so that the folks can actually hear them. It's just really dropping out, and I apologize to have to do this. But we're going to take this into 420 Radio News. I'll just continue with the stories myself, and we can talk about these. This is really good news. About this. I mean, this is kind of an interesting situation. We don't want to see this representative from Maryland successfully block DC's decriminalization. But if he does, it's an interesting situation because the decriminalization will have already gone into effect. This is an amendment to an appropriations bill that may not get signed. If it ever gets signed, it may not get signed for months. So we'll have a series of months where the police in DC are trained not to arrest people, not to harass them based on the smell of weed, and if they do catch them with weed, issue them a $25 ticket. And then a few months later, if this thing goes into effect, they won't be able to spend any money issuing $25 tickets and collecting that money. But there's nothing about not arresting people, not harassing people over the smell of weed that costs the taxpayers any money. In fact, it saves the taxpayers money. So the question is, would marijuana essentially be de facto legalized if it's decriminalized, you can't be arrested for it, and the cops can't spend any money busting you for it? Interesting situation. The U.S. Department of Justice has signed on to a proposal by the U.S. Sentencing Commission for early release of nonviolent drug criminals from federal prison. Quote, under the department's proposal, said Attorney General Eric Holder in a prepared statement, if your offense was nonviolent, did not involve a weapon, and you do not have a significant criminal history, then you would be eligible to apply for a reduced sentence, end quote. The commission has already unanimously approved lowering sentencing guidelines on nonviolent drug crimes by an average of 11 months. They will vote this July 18th on whether those new guidelines should be applied retroactively to those already in prison. The proposal is estimated to save U.S. taxpayers $2.4 billion. Of course, this is something that we've talked about many times, the release of the nonviolent drug prisoners out there. One problem with this, it does have a catch on this, that you cannot have used a firearm in the commission of your drug crime. That would disqualify you from this retroactive lenient sentencing. And the problem with that is many people are convicted on these firearm charges that weren't any sort of gangbangers or dealers or, carrying guns with them when they were growing or selling marijuana. They happen to be hunting weapons or self-defense weapons that might have been in the house of one of the people involved in the dispensary. They were never at the dispensary, but because this person's busted on drug charges, they add those firearms charges as well. Those people would not be eligible for the reduced sentence, but a lot of people would, and it's a great start from the federal government to want to reduce the charges and the sentencing for these people. The House has already voted to defund DEA raids in medical marijuana states, but the attempt to do the same in the Senate has ground to a halt. We reported that two strange political bedfellows, rising Republican star Senator Rand Paul and liberal Democrat Senator Cory Booker, co-sponsored the Senate's version of the amendment to prohibit the Department of Justice from spending taxpayer money to interfere with state marijuana laws. Now, the chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, Senator Barbara Mikulski, has delayed the bill because she felt, quote, caught between White House veto threats and Republican amendments, end quote, including Senator Mitch McConnell's amendment to protect his home state's coal industry that President Obama has promised to veto. Still, activists are hopeful that if the amendment stalls in the committee, the co-sponsors will offer it up as a standalone bill. How it would fare on the Senate floor is anyone's guess. Nobody really thought the House would pass it in the first place. This is one of the aspects of our legislative system that can be very frustrating for people. Is not only do you have to get it, heard in a committee, it has to get out of that committee and get heard by another committee. And it has to get out of that committee and it has to be voted on by the House. And then it gets out of the House, it has to go over to the Senate, where it has to have some sponsors, and then it has to go to a committee, and then it has to be moved out of that committee to another committee. Then it has to move out of that committee and move to the Senate floor and get voted on. And then if both the Senate and the House have voted on it, they have to go to another committee to reconcile all of the differences between the two different bills. And then if it gets out of that committee, it has to be reapproved by both the House and the Senate. And then if it gets out of that, it goes to the president's desk for signing, if he chooses to sign it. And there's a similar sort of procedure in most state houses as well, although I think Nebraska is unicameral, so they only have one branch, right? They only have a House and a Senate. But still, this can be very frustrating for those of us who are on the front lines of trying to do marijuana law reform, when we'll publish a headline like the House has voted to defund DEA raids, and then months later, it gets stalled in the Senate or some committee and never gets heard. It gets buried, and people get frustrated. They think that what they're doing, their votes and their phone calls, aren't making any difference. Don't let that discourage you. Our political process is designed to be slow and deliberate on purpose, and that just means we have to be extra diligent about pushing that big lumbering dinosaur the right way. Pro-legalization candidates for governor lost their party's primary elections yesterday in both Colorado and Maryland. Former Congressman Tom Tancredo was second in a tight four-way race for the Colorado Republican nomination for governor. Bob Beaupre won with 30% of the vote to Tancredo's 26% for second place. Tancredo has said, quote, "I'm all for ending the war on drugs," end quote, and was attacked for it in radio ads by a committee that backed Mike Kopp, of all names, the fourth place finisher with 19% of the vote. In Maryland, Anthony Brown won the Democrat nomination for governor with 51%, while openly gay pro-legalization candidate delegate Heather Mazur virtually split the remaining vote with Douglas Gansler, who received 24% of the vote to Mazur's 22% of the vote. On the Republican side in Maryland, businessman Larry Hogan won his party's nomination. While not pro-legalization, Hogan told WBAL-TV, quote, "Locking up someone for a very small amount of marijuana seems unjust," end quote. Well, you could call this bad news that the people that support marijuana legalization didn't make it in Colorado or in Maryland in their primaries. I see this as good news. I see the silver lining here, that in the Republican Party in Colorado, not just pro-marijuana legalization, but pro-all drug legalization, end all prohibition. A guy like Tom Tancredo can finish second in the GOP primary, a very respectable second with 26% of the vote. The guy who won got 30%, so it was very, very close. And in Maryland, you have Heather Majure virtually finished second, is a close third, and then on the Republican side, the most friendly candidate won. It's amazing. We're not going to win them all, but the fact that we're even considered to be serious contenders in the game represents a huge shift in political thinking in this country. All right, we're going to take our break. It's 20 after. It's 4:20 in Denver. Sorry, Priscilla, that we had to say goodbye. The audio, could not take it. We'll be back with Behind the Headlines after these messages.
.420 Radio, fighting prohibition since 2012. Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org.
NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks may be far less than those posed by legal drugs.
Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you.
Welcome back, everyone. Time for us to go behind the headlines, and rather than go behind them, I'm just going to read them to you. A very heartfelt story by Alicia Fonesavan, I think is her last name. Alicia, we'll say. On Alternate today, entitled, "A SWAT Team Blew a Hole in My 2-Year-Old Son." After our house burned down in Wisconsin a few months ago, my husband and I packed our 4 young kids and all our belongings into a gold minivan and drove to my sister-in-law's place just outside of Atlanta. On the back windshield, we pasted 6 stick figures, a dad, a mom, 3 young girls, and 1 baby boy. That minivan was sitting in the front driveway of my sister-in-law's place the night a SWAT team broke in, looking for a small amount of drugs they thought my husband's nephew had. Some of my kids' toys were in the front yard, but the officers claimed they had no way of knowing children might be present. Our whole family was sleeping in the same room. 1 bed for us, 1 for the girls, and a crib. After the SWAT team broke down the door, they threw a flashbang grenade inside. It landed in my son's crib. Flashbang grenades were created for soldiers to use during battle. When they explode, the noise is so loud and the flash is so bright that anyone close by is temporarily blinded and deafened. It's been 3 weeks since the flashbang exploded next to my sleeping baby, and he's still covered in burns. There's still a hole in his chest that exposes his ribs. At least that's what I've been told. I'm afraid to look. My husband's nephew, the one they were looking for, wasn't there. He doesn't even live in that house. After breaking down the door, throwing my husband to the ground, and screaming at my children, the officers, armed with M16s, filed through the house like they were playing war. They searched for drugs and never found any. I heard my baby wailing and asked one of the officers to let me hold him. He screamed at me to sit down and shut up and blocked my view so I couldn't see my son. I could see a singed crib, and I could see a pool of blood. The officers yelled at me to calm down and told me my son was fine. He'd just lost a tooth. It was only hours later when they finally let us drive to the hospital that we found out that Boo Boo was in the intensive burn unit and he'd been placed into a medically induced coma. For the last 3 weeks, my husband and I have been sleeping at the hospital. We tell our son that we love him and will never leave him behind. His car seat is still in the minivan, right where it's always been, and we whisper to him that soon we'll be taking him home with us. Every morning I have to face the reality that my son is fighting for his life. It's not clear whether he'll live or die. All of this to find a small amount of drugs? The only silver lining I can possibly see is that my baby Boo Boo's story might make us angry enough that we stop accepting brutal SWAT raids as a normal way to fight the war on drugs. I know that this has happened to other families here in Georgia and across the country. I know that SWAT teams are breaking into homes in the middle of the night, more often than not, just to serve search warrants in drug cases. I know that too many local cops have stockpiled weapons that were made for soldiers to take to war. And as is usually the case with aggressive policing, I know that people of color and poor people are more likely to be targeted. I know these things because of the American Civil Liberties Union new report, and because I'm working with them to push for restraints on the use of SWAT. A few nights ago, my 8-year-old woke up in the middle of the night screaming, "No, don't kill him! You're hurting my brother! Don't kill him!" How can I ever make that go away? I used to tell my kids that if they were ever in trouble, they should go to the police for help. Now my kids don't want to go to sleep at night because they're afraid the cops will kill them or their family. It's time to remind the cops that they should be serving and protecting our neighborhoods, not waging war on the people in them. I pray every minute that I'll get to hear my son's laugh again, that I'll get to watch him eat French fries or hear him sing his favorite song from Frozen. I'd give anything to watch him chase after his sisters again. I just want justice for my baby, and that means making sure no other family ever has to feel this horrible pain. As of yesterday afternoon, baby Boo Boo has been taken out of the medically induced coma and transferred to a new hospital to begin rehabilitation. The hole in his chest has yet to heal, and doctors are still not able to fully assess lasting brain damage. That's your war on drugs, folks. That's the lengths we will go to try to stop young people from smoking pot. Is it worth it?
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, fighting prohibition since 2012. When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com. Drug Policy Facts, replaying Fridays at 11 Pacific on 420radio.org. New Approach Oregon is a coalition of Oregon citizens who believe that treating marijuana use as a crime has failed, costing taxpayers millions in law enforcement resources. Our approach will regulate, tax, and legalize marijuana for adults in Oregon. We can move Oregon forward and create new revenue for critical services. Visit our website at newapproachoregon.com or our page on Facebook at New Approach Oregon. Thank you. Marijuana smokers are some of the most creative engineers in the world. Now that marijuana is becoming legal, we're moving past homemade creations of necessity and into professionally designed products for the cannabis consumer. We take a look at some of today's hottest products in our paraphernalia parade.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It is 29 and a half after the hour, and we are getting ready for our first installment of what we are calling Paraphernalia Parade, which is just our kind of show and tell on some of the latest devices and instruments that we use in the marijuana community. Today, we're taking a look at the Herbalizer Vaporizer, and calling into the show any moment now will be Joshua Young, who's one of the spokespeople for the Herbalizer, so we're looking forward to that. We've had a test unit here for about a week at Rolla J Studios, and I'm joined right now by Left Wing Larry, who's been our lead tester on this. Larry, what do you think of the Herbalizer so far?
Well, I must be stupid. I can't get the darn thing to work right.
Yeah.
So hopefully, when he calls in today, he can help us with it. How are we doing on weed in here?
I don't know that we've put any in there, so you might want to check that out.
Okay.
But the first thing that I notice about the device is it's just a great look to it. It looks like something that would be sitting in, you know, a rich person's house on a nice table, you know, and it has a dual function in that it can be used as a traditional vaporizer like we would use with the whip, you know, the little attachment there so you can get your vapor directly. It also comes with the vapor bags like you would see in the case of, you know, a lot of different vaporizers where the big turkey bag fills up with vapor. So it can be used that way, but it also has settings to be used as an aromatherapy device. And in that capacity, it can be used with all sorts of essential oils. You can close the lid, set it off to in the corner of the room, and it just sits there and produces those wonderful vapors for you. It's got a kind of a clamshell design, and we can show this here on the camera a little bit, kind of a clamshell design where it's got a digital readout on the front there and easy buttons right there on the front to use. And another feature that I really enjoy about this is it's what they call its mezzanine, which is just a little storage tray. It has a cleaning brush. It has a little bottle for essential oils. It has a little metal screen for the oils. It has a box and a grinder card that come with it. You know, a little stash box that comes with it. And you can get into the clamshell part of it without interrupting any of the vaporization part of it. So that's also kind of nice. The whip stores right here in this little I don't know, moat, little cutaway area, and the whole thing is light and easy to use. Did you need the whip? Yeah, here we go. Okay, we've got the whip here. So Larry is getting this all fired up for us, and we'll give it a couple of tests real quick. One thing that we did discuss earlier was the instruction set for it, the instruction manual, which Larry seemed to say, you know, was kind of hard to parse. But if you go up on their website, it seems that they've got a really, really good website for, you know, customer support, where you can get all sorts of videos to be able to help you out with that. Now, another feature here, and I don't have the don't have the camera set up the way I want to, so I'll just grab this camera and we can use it this way. Here we go. Creativity in action. All right, so I'll give you a look at the unit itself while we're working on this. And there you go. You can see the Herbalizer, and then it's got the digital readout. It says balanced right now. We're at 389 degrees Fahrenheit. And joining us by phone, I think we've got Joshua on the line. Are you there, Joshua?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Oh, so glad to have you here. We've already kind of started our review here of the Herbalizer. We're showing the test unit you sent out to us, and we want to thank you a lot for that. Give us just your basic thumbnail description of the Herbalizer for our audience.
Well, the Herbalizer has really been the works after 4 years of a really intense R&D development to create something very, very different that delivers all sorts of herbal remedies in a new, profound way. And what it really does is allows you to really control your experience.
So, you know, working with this initially, you know, we've got two settings on it that I see: aromatherapy and vapor therapy. So, what's the difference here?
Well, vapor therapy is what most people think of when they think of vaporization. So we're using hot air to control exactly what you're extracting. Aromatherapy is classic aromatherapy. That's where you're using essential oils. And the device also has a timer on it where you can set a timer, apply the essential oils, and then diffuse them into the room, which is really nice after you vaporize, and it creates this really nice aroma and smell in the room that's very balancing. It's a very complete holistic experience.
Now, on the vaporization side of things, this is a very nice unit, very well designed, and it's probably on what I would call the high-end market as far as vaporizers go. But I think one of the advantages I see in it compared to a lot of vaporizers that I've taken a look at, in addition to that dual function, the aromatherapy and the vapor therapy, the other advantage that I'm seeing on this, and tell me if I'm wrong, this can be used for both flower-type vaporization and oil-type vaporization?
That's right. You can do everything. It works exceptionally well with flower. That's what we originally designed it for. But about 3/4 way through the design, we discovered the evolving concentrates extracts desire, and we developed a special pad that works inside of the where you normally put the flower. And on that pad, when you apply the concentrates, it does an amazing job vaporizing. It starts at around 400 Fahrenheit. You get a nice light vapor, and around 445, the maximum temperature, you get a really, really heavy cloud from it. And it's very much different than the way people have been doing it so far, because there's truly no combustion at all. And what that means with the concentrates is that your material will go 2 or 3 times further.
That's great news. Now, like you said high end on this at 445. Looks like the low end is what, 290?
290, and that's where you just start getting out like an uplifting, very awakening, energizing, focusing effect. As you go higher a temperature, you start extracting different parts of the plant that give you more of a sedating, pain-relieving, powerful, potent effect.
I see.
So 290 starts 445, just below the point of burning. Remember, this is a vaporizer.
Right.
It will never burn, smoke-free. That's the high end.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned that it comes with a timer for the aromatherapy functions. Are there any other digital functions? I mean, I see the temperature. I mean, can that be adjusted to Celsius? Any other digital functions we should know about?
You bet. This is a very smart vaporizer. You hold the plus minus together. You can switch between Fahrenheit and Celsius. It actually has a three-axis accelerometer in it, just like in your smartphone. So if you actually tip it over in any angle past 30 degrees, it will automatically shut down the heater as well as the internal fan. When you put it back, it'll come back. It has an ambient light sensor on it, so the LCD actually will adjust to the brightness in the room. This is unlike any vaporizer anybody's ever come up with or really conceived of before. It's really a tremendous advancement. We're all very excited about it.
Yeah, I really like the unit here, and like I say, it's multi-form design, I think, is what I like. You know, being able to do aromatherapy or vaporization, multiple temperature guides here, both whip and bag, and in the case of aromatherapy, timed release as the unit is shut, right? You can shut this entire lid and just, you know, it'll vaporize. If we took this whip off, for example, and we shut it, that's where it would be in like aromatherapy mode. And right here, this little grid is where the vapors would be coming out of this. This looks like something, one of my listeners in the chat room is saying, kind of looks like a CPAP machine.
Yeah.
And it looks like it also auto shuts off, or the digital readout turns off when I shut the lid. Is that right?
That's it. Just close the lid, it automatically turns off. Open the lid, it automatically turns on. And every time you open it, it'll actually give you a different welcome message. You probably saw that.
Yeah.
It has an automatic timer. After you stop using it, it automatically goes into a sleep mode after 20 minutes. And if you ever get to that point, you'll see some really cool kind of 70s-ish colorful display features happening. And then another 10 minutes after that, it just totally shuts off. So what it really
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It interacts with you. I mean, it kind of has a personality of its own.
You know, I had read on your site as well that it had a really fast heat up time. I know that's the problem with some of these things is you're sitting there waiting for it to heat up. Any specs on that?
Yeah, you bet. That's actually our core technology, and it'll heat up in under 10 seconds. You literally don't have to wait for it, and it's dead on precise. So if you're ready to walk out the door and you want to vaporize, you don't have to wait. You can literally, by the time your herb is prepared, the Herbalizer is ready to go for you. And it does that with a custom-designed 300-watt halogen bulb. And it's there's nothing else like it in the world. And where bulbs have traditionally been used for lighting places, we found a new application. And it couples this high-powered halogen bulb with an incredibly responsive in-air temperature sensor. I know I'm getting a little techie here, but the temperature sensor in the airstream is right below the herb, right below that screen below the bowl. And so any slight variation in temperature, the computer immediately responds to and fires that very powerful halogen bulb, which delivers heat at the speed of light. So it's constantly regulating and delivering perfect temperature, which means absolutely perfect vapor quality.
All right, so now we have to get to the big question everyone wants to know is, what is the price range on one of these bad boys?
Well, it is, as you said, very high-end. It is the most expensive vaporizer in the world. And truly, it probably should be selling for $1,000 because of what we put into it and the tech in there. But the retail price is $729.
All right. Now, is there any sort of warranty or guarantee on that?
You bet. It's a 2-year bumper-to-bumper warranty. And we go beyond that, though. We're offering a 5-year quality guarantee with this limited edition. And that means if anything goes wrong between years 2 all the way up to 5 years, we'll give you a new one at half off. And this is also made in the United States. We make it here in sunny San Diego. And we definitely stand behind the product, too. We have good customer support. Any questions, we're here.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Joshua, for telling us about the Herbalizer. And you know, it's like I said, that one of the nice things about legalization of medical and recreational cannabis is that we are going to see all levels of the market controlled, you know, all the way from the handy and cheap all the way up to the nice, you know, home units like this Herbalizer. We appreciate you for telling us all about it. Can you give us some links or contact information if people want to follow up?
Yes, thank you, Russ. Please check us out at Herbalizer.com, and we are online as well in social space with hashtag HerbalizeIt.
All right. Hashtag Herbalize It. Thank you so much, Joshua, for joining us. And that is our first paraphernalia parade. Thank you for being with us, and we appreciate the opportunity to review the vaporizer.
Thank you very much, Russ.
All right. When we come back, we'll have David Rheins from the Marijuana Business Association in Washington previewing this Saturday's Marijuana Business Vendor Fair. Stay tuned.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, your ticket to the Boston Freedom Rally. Cannabis Outreach Collective is an alternative health and wellness option located in Gladstone, Oregon, that serves patients in the Portland area and beyond. You can find out more about Cannabis Outreach Collective on Facebook at COC503 or by emailing cannabisoutreachcollective503@gmail.com or by telephone at 503-853-1319. In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
I helped murder families in Colombia.
It was just innocent fun.
I helped kidnap people's dads. Hey, some harmless fun.
I helped kids learn how to kill.
I was just having some fun, you know.
I helped kill policemen.
I was just having fun.
I helped the bomber get a fake passport.
All the kids do it. I helped kill a judge. I helped blow up buildings. My life, my body. It's not like I was hurting anybody else.
This has been the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. To cure this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Russ Belville Show every weekday on 420radio.org. When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com. Mark Twain once said that when there's a gold rush, it's a good time to be in the pick and shovel business. Today we look at the rapidly evolving markets in the marijuana green rush in our Cannabusiness Chronicles.
Welcome back, everybody. 45 after the hour, and on the phone with us we got Dave Rheins from the Washington Marijuana Business Association. How you doing, David?
I'm great, Russ. Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, glad to have you here, and thanks for all your support from MJBA.net. I encourage everyone to check out the Marijuana Business Association, because one of the things that we've got going on here, of course, is the green rush. We've talked about it in Colorado and Washington, and it's going to happen pretty soon here in Oregon and Alaska and a whole bunch of other states. And sometimes on our side, people are like, oh, I don't want to be corporate. I don't want to be old Walmart. But folks, we have the opportunity to make this business what we want it to be, and MJBA can help you make the relationships to make that happen. So, David, you've got another one of these great events coming up this Saturday, a vendor fair. I got to attend one at the Magical Butter Studios. Tell us what's happening this weekend.
Yeah, well, thank you, Russ. Yeah, you were at the very first trade show for the legal marijuana industry, I believe, anywhere in the country, and certainly here in Washington State. That was back in March when we were still awaiting the final dots on the I's and T's to be crossed from the Washington Liquor Control Board 502 regulations. Now that process is finished, licenses are being issued, and the first retail stores will open the second week of July. Just prior to that, this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, at the Magical Butter Studios in Seattle, we will have about 30 cannabis companies, professional service companies, everyone in the legal marijuana industry, from 502 licensees, and all the industries, all the folks who will be supporting them, from attorneys to logistics to security, finance. We've got a number of exciting folks who are coming in to talk about finance this weekend.
That's excellent, because I'd heard, I was at one of the events where, was it the Salal Credit Union? I don't know if I got the name right.
That's right, yeah. Bob Schweigert, who's the Chief Lending Officer for Salal Credit Union here in Western Washington, attended our Cannabusiness in the Law seminar that you were gracious enough to be a panel moderator and a participant in. And at that point, he announced, again, news was made at an MJBA B2B event, that they would be taking 502 accounts, and that they were open to making loans to 502 companies, and they gave the parameters of that at that meeting. Subsequently, there have been a number of other firms who have come in to fill in the areas that Salal and Numerica, which is another credit union in Eastern Washington, started, particularly starting to make small loans and issue credit relationships through security and other programs for processors and even retailers. So that's, again, news, and those folks will be well represented and eager to talk to anyone who's interested in financing or security or how to better manage from all cash into sustainable and trackable business practices.
Yeah, this is going to be quite a rollout, because unlike Colorado, where there was already an existing well-regulated medical marijuana industry and they just kind of tacked recreational onto it, Washington State's starting from scratch and has to answer a whole bunch of questions that had never been, answered before with respect to marijuana markets and advertising and regulations and inspections and all this kind of stuff. And I've also heard, David, that come July 8th, when the first few stores start to open, there's only going to be, like 20 or so that open, and they're predicting some sort of run on the market since there won't be that many processors, not that many crops that have been legally grown up to that point. How can attending this MJBA Saturday Business Fair help the people that are starting to open to deal with all this crazy chaos that's going to happen once July rolls around?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What's happened is that because we've created a whole new industry, wholesale, we've had to start a whole new crop of entrepreneurs and new companies. That means business plans and financing and real estate and all the things that any entrepreneur has to do. However, we've got extra special compliance considerations that must be addressed. And particularly zoning's been problematic, and all that is then put into an artificial timeline where these entrepreneurs are learning the rules just days before the market goes open. So, you had Jay Inslee, the governor of Washington, yesterday issue some guidelines that suggested that there would be strict packaging restrictions against any kind of cartoon or child pandering illustrations and promotions. So that what that means in actuality for a business that might have been planning for the last year to bring product to the shelves in 2 weeks, now there might be considerations that suggest they have to redo some of that work, right? So what's going to happen this weekend is this is the last opportunity for folks to find product for their retail stores, to find additional growers or processors or help, logistics, staffing, security, transportation, all of those things that were not essential to getting your license but are absolutely crucial to doing business. And again, Russ, July 8th is kind of a historic moment when the first stores open up. But this process will be ongoing for the next months and years. And so what we're really looking to do is put in place a mechanism that will create a product flow and a process and answer things like distribution and warehousing of product, which up to this point it still looks like will be on the onus of the individual producers. Or processors, and so that's a lot of transportation and distribution work that those guys haven't really signed up for, if you will. So the beginnings of those solutions are being crafted in the demonstrations, in the booths, and in the halls for the next couple of days. So it won't be something that will be resolved, but it's something that is being resolved as we all work with one another.
We're talking to Dave Rheins from the Washington Marijuana Business Association. You can check them out at mjba.net, and they have meetups in Seattle, New York, and Los Angeles. You can click the button there at the website and get more information. This Saturday, there's the meetup in Seattle, and like you said, it's the last chance for I-502 licensees to wrap up those last few details before opening up sometime in July. Take advantage of this and become a member of the MJBA today, and you can attend these kind of events. Now, as people are joining MJBA, coming from, the world we've got of, the world of prohibition, they may have had experience growing marijuana in the past. They may have had experience selling marijuana in the past. What are the kind of new things that new entrepreneurs in Washington most need to bring to the table in this newly legalized world?
Well, as I suggested, it's really from soup to nuts. And what's interesting is that while you just discussed folks who may have been doing home grows or outdoor grows now, or who are perhaps baking brownies in their kitchen and having a little cottage business, or even servicing the dispensaries at their local co-op, this is a completely different thing, right? That's analogous to going from frying chicken in your kitchen to becoming Colonel Sanders and KFC.
Right.
You really have to start with business planning. What kind of business? How big is your business? what about your brand and your intellectual property, designing that, creating an identity, protecting that, getting the right, legal advice, and then managing your business. First, finding funding, and again, within 502, you have certain guidelines where that funding cannot come from just any source, has to come from very specific in-state sources. And then once you get your money, you have to build your organization and scale it, and then build the strategic partnerships. And unlike existing businesses, those other ancillary businesses may not be in place, right? So what happens if you're running a 502 retail store and you have a plumbing problem, right? Mm-hmm. You have to, according to 502, you have to have a badge for anyone to go into that production facility or that inventory area. Does the plumber have to, have special consideration? And will just any plumber service your business? So, it's not just what you need to know, it's who you need to know, and then really the ability to help form those regulations. Because this really is pioneer days in that, we're all settling down in Deadwood and we're starting to build the town, and first we build the street and a couple of saloons and a couple of retail stores, and then we start building residential and we start filling in the fine points. That's what's got to happen here. So every single business has, depending on where they're coming from, a whole host of things. Many folks are coming from bigger, more established environments: lawyers, accountants, logistics, distribution, real estate, investment folks, may be very sophisticated. And indeed, here in Seattle, we have many folks with backgrounds from Microsoft and Starbucks and Amazon who are both politically sympathetic to the end of prohibition and economically opportunistic at the realization that this green rush comes but once, and if you're going to be there on the opening day. So that's really what the opportunity is this weekend. If you want to be in the cannabis industry in Washington State, you absolutely have to be here. You have to know these folks. You have to make these relationships, and we certainly think that by joining the MJBA, you will be in a position to do all of that under one roof in one fell swoop.
One of the aspects of Washington legalization that's getting some chat in my live chat room has to do with the high price that is being projected, $20 a gram perhaps. And of course, most of that's owing to the high taxes that were put into Washington's legalization. Is there any thought in the business community here, the marijuana business community, that there's eventually going to need to be some sort of addressing of these high tax rates in order for these businesses to better survive? Sorry about that.
That was cool. I got a little musical interlude there, too. It's interesting, Russ, because I was speaking to Kevin Oliver, the executive director of Washington NORML, about this week, and he suggests that, in fact, prices, once they right-size and once all of the production from the canopy comes online and all of the producers and processors, start really optimizing their manufacturing, that in fact the price of cannabis will go down, and he's predicting as low as $1 a gram. And he quoted Chris Marr from the Liquor Control Board as suggesting that in the long term, not in the first 6 months or year perhaps, but in the next 18 or 24 or 36 months, that businesses should start growers should plan on a $3 or $4 gram as they're doing their business planning. So what it really will be, I think, rather than enact more regulation, which I think we've had our fill of all the various hurdles we have to jump, I believe that most of us are looking at the dynamics of a free open marketplace to level set the right price.
Yeah, you can't repeal the law of supply and demand. And I'm telling you, once Oregon gets its legalization capped at $1.25 a gram, that kind of market pressure is going to force Washington to make a change.
That's right. And and I think that in the short run, I mean, the reality is that on July 8th, we're not going to have a whole lot of stores, and there's not going to be a whole lot of product in the States. And so it will be a slower ramp. And but, you know, never underestimate the enthusiasm and creativity of entrepreneurs. And I can tell you, the hundreds of folks that we're working with, business folks, brands that we're working with here in Washington, they are super pumped. I have never seen the level of excitement, and so there may be a few rocky days or weeks to start, but I'll guarantee you that the product that's coming through the pipeline will be impressive.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
Everybody check out MJBA.net. The vendor fair is this Saturday. Sorry we ran out of time at the end of the hour there, Dave, but thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon in Seattle. For Priscilla Simon, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.